Welcome back. Always good to have you in the community, and thank you so much for coming back every time and supporting us in the way that you do. Thank you that you have subscribed and that you're really assisting us in reaching our milestone, which is 1,000 subscribers. Right? We have three goals. We have a short term goal, a medium term goal, and a long term goal. Our short term goal is to get to 1,000 subscribers. Thank you so much that you are assisting us in that regard. Your help uh, means a lot to us. And thank you for sharing and the videos, commenting, for liking them. And thank you that you click the button so every time when a new video drops like this one, you are aware of it. For if you are new here, welcome. And would you be so kind as to borrow us your ears for until the end of the videos, your ears and your eyes until the end of the video. Thank you so much. And but no pressure on you, no pressure. Uh, we won't take it personally if you don't subscribe. It would just be nice of you if you could assist us to get where we want to get and where we need to get, and also to spread the message and just to get the community talking. So thank you so much for that. The last episode we talked about religion. Many times we find that people say, "I don't believe in religion," and and people have uh, um, it's their prerogative to see and to believe or not to believe in things or in ideologies, to have their own. It's the onus on to believe is on the individual. But I sometimes think that maybe some of us have not really sat down and really look at the definition of religion. What does it really mean? And the angle that we're coming from is to say that religion means to see truth. It means to see truth. Now, that was a bit of, we touched a bit on that and the previous video. Today, in this video, we want to talk about true learning that emancipates, because that's what true learning is. True learning really um, frees a person. It provides freedom. It emancipates. Now, the word discipline derives from the word disciple. I use the word disciple here because it is a frequently used term, title within some religious circles. A disciple is one who is learning from his teacher. Notice that learning in this sense means discovering and creating under the guidance of the learned. It does not mean cloning or conforming, but discovering for oneself. A learner is a disciplined creator. He or she creates with their thoughts as well as their words. Words are an expression of thoughts. Learning necessitates a crossing over. Learning means to bring to life. It is a process whereby one is left restored. Learning brings the mind to sound judgment. It brings the spirit to a level of assertiveness. True learning gives new meaning to old notions. In fact, true learning is the process by which old notions are corrected with new intuition and experiments. Learning thus means discovering. The journey of discovering catapults the learner to dimensions of unknown favor. In this process, the learner is expected to cross over to other possibilities. There are four areas of crossing over that I'd like us to look at. Let me just remind you of those, and you may add to the list. Firstly, crossing geographical settings. Secondly, making a paradigm shift. Thirdly, moving from the natural into the quantum mechanics, or what we sometimes call as the spiritual, and fourthly, crossing to the supernatural through death. We may not engage in all these areas of crossing over, but at one stage or the other, some of these undertakings will be necessitated by our circumstances. Crossing geographical settings, for example, there we would see that pure learning allows for a transcendence to a new setting, a different geographical space. Every new setting offers gleanings. There are times when it is easy for us to do this kind of crossing, since it is physical. But other times it is not feasible to do so. Irrespective of the situation, this type of crossing over always yields learning opportunities. My household, over the years, moved several times across provinces within South Africa. South Africa has 9 provinces, and we have moved and crossed provinces. I mean, at least 8 of the 9 provinces. So ask me about this geographical crossing over. I have experienced that. But I do not have the space and time here to share all our experiences. But but I can assure you that every new geographical setting presented us with learning opportunities galore. Such experiences like the one we had at the south coast of Durban. We lived in a small town called Amzinto. Our neighbors there made our stay a special one. At will never forget the experiences, wonderful experiences that we have had there. So the second type of crossing over is paradigm shift, a change of mind. This second kind of crossing over also offers a learning experience like the previous one. A paradigm shift is that mental crossing over. This crossing is necessitated when a mental move is needed. This is the time when we have to change our minds about things. Now, the biblical author refers to it as the renewal of the mind. A renewal also means a revival. A revival brings transformation or, 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 or revolution. It brings about a change, a transformation. Now, all these experiences create learning opportunities. Moving from the net, moving from the natural into the supernatural is the third kind of crossing over that I'm talking about, that I want to talk about. So this crossing over ushers us into the realm of, and here I'm not a scientist, just a disclaimer there, but the scientists they refer to it as quantum physics. Within the religious sector, we would look at the same things and call it the spiritual or the spiritual world. So this is the third kind of crossing over. And if I have to just pause there for a moment, it's just to remind you this spiritual thing, this crossing over is where the natural converges with the supernatural. It is when where the physical meets or collides with the spiritual. Um, I have seen, have experienced this kind of working, this kind of level, where, for example, you would pray and decree and declare things, request things, and you believe with all of your heart, your mind, your body, your soul, with your eyes and your ears and your organs, everything believes, and you pray uh, intently and intensively. Then you That kind of a prayer produces, it ushers you into the spiritual. Just a level some educated would talk about, and some people again would say, no, that's the world of the mystics, the mystical world, and may think that that's preposterous. It doesn't really happen that way. Um, and whilst others believe it. But that's the point when the reason why I'm mentioning that is to bring in things like, levitation, telepathy, telekinesis, your teleportation, astral projection, all these things. Some people who have not experienced that don't believe that, just think that it's uh, ludicrous. But then there are those of us on this terrestrial realm who can attest to that it is real because we have experienced. Now, you cannot criticize what you have not experienced. So so that others refer to it as quantum physics, and in broader terms, some others would refer that's part of the spiritual and what is happening there. And that's where the faith comes in. But you know, the power of prayer, you know, um, when you make room in your thought life, in your thought mansion for 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 prayer and faith and belief, you will experience some things to be real, even though it's not physically visible. Does not mean it does not exist. There are there are atoms and a lot of these things within the universe that we cannot see or experience with the physical eye. But that does not mean that these things don't exist. So those things that we can't lay hold of with the physical eye can be seen spiritually. So we've got to understand to then give it a consideration that there's a physical eye and there's a spiritual eye. There are things that are natural and there are things that are spiritual or supernatural. And that's this kind of crossing over that I'm referring to into that realm from the natural into the spiritual. Um, then there's a fourth kind of crossing over from this life into the life hereafter, um, or death. A person who is alive and a dead person are in two different forms or states. So I'm just thinking now. It takes my mind back quickly. Let me just go back because I want to go into this fourth one, crossing over. Let me just go back to um, this spiritual thing and this quantum physics things. Just something crossed my mind now that I'd like to remind us about, and which is we are able to experience a learning that is distinct from the natural sphere. For example, the natural or the conscious world teaches us to petition, to plead, but the spiritual world or the world in the quantum physics, I think, teaches us to decree. Quantum physics, according to the scientists, can be defined as the law of attraction, the law of possibilities. Now, how do we cross from the natural to the spiritual dimension? The answer lies in listening, reading, studying, memorizing, and meditation. So both the natural and the supernatural offer possibilities. The natural and the spiritual, the physical and the spiritual. Many of us have yet to transcend our mental confines and explore supernatural possibilities. We haven't experienced that because we didn't believe. There are people who say that, no, for me, seeing is believing. And then there are some of us who say, I believe in though, even though I have not seen. And that's the latter group of people are the people who believe that whatever is in the spiritual and takes place in the spiritual realm, which cannot be seen with the naked eye, by believing for the possibility of it to exist, it then manifests from the spiritual into the natural, and you are able to experience it that way. Many years ago, I traveled to a remote place which offered a peaceful and a quiet atmosphere, tranquility. I needed a place where I could separate myself unto the Lord, pray. That was a season of my life where I fasted and I prayed a lot. I believed the word of God. And so I found the perfect place which could serve the purpose. So the topography of the place was awesome. There were not many people around. During the day, I read, studied, prayed, and meditated alongside the riverbank. It was on my third day of separation that an outlandish thing occurred. I vividly remembered that I was kneeling. My eyes were closed. Suddenly, an inexplicable, audible voice filled my ears. It amplified the words, "The voice of the Lord is like the sound of many waters. The voice of the Lord is over the waters. The God of glory thunders. The Lord thunders over the mighty waters." I jumped to my feet, opened my eyes to see who was talking to me, but there was no one inside. I turned in all directions, the north, the south, the east, the west. But all I could see was the water, the grass, rocks on the other side of the river, and sand. I turned to my Bible, which was opened at a passage which read, "The voice of the Lord is over the waters. The God of glory thunders. The Lord thunders over the mighty waters." That's recorded in Psalm 29, verse 3. Now, at that moment, the rushing sound of the water was increased as if to confirm that the voice of the Lord thunders like many waters. I was astonished because I noticed the verse for the very first time. Call it what you like, but as for me, that is an experience I will never forget. To me, it was a supernatural experience. Supernatural occurrences are beyond our comprehension. That's why it's called supernatural. There are, for example, some occurrences in life on this terrestrial realm that are just beyond our understanding. I mean, how do you explain the miraculous curing of someone who suffered from cancer? How can you make plain the salvation of someone who escaped death in a terrible car accident or car crash? By the way, the spirit world is a supernatural world. There are times when we have to cross cultural barriers in order to discharge an obligation. Other times, the call exhorts us to cross religious barriers. There are also of the barriers of impossibilities or doubt which we have to cross. Some of us have to cross the barriers of disease, the barriers of sickness. We have to cross the barriers of poverty, rejection, and our low self-esteem. Whatever the case may be, we have to cross because the miracle is on the other side. I'm just thinking now of Mark chapter number 4 and 5. We need to cross because the revelation is on the other side. Miracles and revelations are learning experiences that often await us on the other side. So let's look quickly at the fourth crossing over, which is death. I mentioned it earlier. This occurs when we move to the afterlife. This takes place when our life here on this terrestrial realm are expired. That's a crossing over that we cannot escape. We cannot escape. Life is about seasons, and seasons often require of us to cross over, to move, to transform to other confines, to other spaces, some other areas. Sometimes a paradigm shift, a change of thinking, a change on the outlook of life, a change of relationships, environments. Um, like I mentioned earlier on, we changed, we moved around, we relocated. Sometimes we have to change jobs. Sometimes we have to change the way we look at things. We have to cross over to other realms. And for those of us who do not believe, sometimes we get to a place where we'll have to cross over to the area of belief. But but true learning offers freedom. True learning offers freedom because the more we learn, the more freedom we're supposed to experience. Information is power. Information is power. It emancipates. While I'm talking to you, a lot of things are going through my mind. And at the same time, an immense joy filling my mind, my heart right now, and appreciation for life. Because while talking to you, I realize how much I've gleaned from this life, and that the many lessons that I learned, I didn't get from the usual or from the familiar places. I had to cross over. I had to change my way of thinking. I had to move a different direction. I had to move. And and as a result of that, I was always met with learning opportunities. We learn when we cross the confines, when you go to other environments. We learn immensely. So true learning emancipates. True learning emancipates. I'm so glad and really appreciated that you have borrowed me your ears to this point. You can just share your inputs, just your comments, and how we would like to hear from you. And we hope that next time when we see you, we'll be able to explore more. But from our lives, we were able, at one stage we lived within a community, an Indian community. Most of the people from the Indian, I mean, in that community were in Indian people. At one stage, we lived amongst Xhosa people, and isiZulu, and we lived amongst white folk, and but we grew up in colored communities. So you can see there that, and I'm bringing that out because in South Africa, we are still classified as those, as that. Even when you fill in um, a form, application form for employment, especially within the government domain, then you'll have to specify there whether you're black, you other, Asian, or you white, you're colored, or you have to specify. So in South Africa, that's still the case, even though we're enjoying this democracy. And sometimes these things and phrases and titles are used interchangeably. But we know as South Africans, it's not really an insult because there's a setting and that's how it goes. So that is, hence I mentioned that we lived within these different communities, meaning that these were different cultures and we had to mingle with them and had to, cross our colored confines, move into other cultural groups, into other, and that presented a whole lot of different things that we had to learn, that we were uh, for us to mingle and to be a blessing to the community, or and vice versa. So so that is why I mentioned that. But that crossing over to that's where we have learned a lot. We have learned from others. We have learned because sometimes when you're just in your own setting, then you tend to stereotype because all you know your settings, you know your culture, you know your everything about. So you don't know the other, and where there's a situation of us and them. Now, but the moment you move over, you cross over, you mingle, you get to know the other culture, the other group, then you learn. And then you can say, wow, it's not what I thought. It's not what I imagined. So that whole process there is what I would call learning experiences that emancipates you. It just liberates your thinking. It takes you from uh, a parochial view to a panoramic view where you read widely, you look differently, you look widely at things, and I mean, it's just a whole new learning experience. It's like when you move from your country of birth and you cross the ocean, or you cross the border into another country, and the amount of lessons that there are in the other country. So once you learn, and you're a tough learner, you're a serious learner, you're curious, always want to know stuff, and you learn, and you find that all those learning experiences produce a growth in you, a freedom in you. It then obliterates all the fears that you have and presents you with the joy and the freedom and the boldness. Because now you can see it is not as bad as I thought, or it is worse than what I thought. But the learning experience, the lesson, the classroom is often on the other side. And you've got to cross over to that side to experience that that great thing, that great lesson. Because learning places an emphasis on the interest of in life, on new interests in life. It sparks renewal. It sparks transformation and adjustment. True learning often challenges tradition. But until the next time, thank you once again. Peace.